with the one and only
Shay Sandifer.
Say it louder so the people can
Shay
hear.
Sandifer.
Right, we're here with Shay Sandifer, a mutual friend in common, introduced us virtually, and we finally got you in on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and our schedules have been so busy, so it's been in the making for a couple months.
Yes.
She drove all the way to Duluth to do this interview. Partially.
But I live here.
She lives here, but
yeah, I live here.
you know,
Yeah.
super mom on the go. So tell the world, who is Shay Sandifer?
I'm a mother. I'm an entrepreneur. I would say somewhat I'm a healer. I help people heal from the inside out. That's my whole MO. But, you know, my journey into entrepreneurship, you know, started corporate and then into this life, and I've been loving it for 11 years now.
Nice. And so what do you do? Do you have your own studio, your own business?
So the new MPLS is my first business, and we focus on fitness, wellness, and nutrition.
Nice.
So I should say we racial health and equity through the lens of fitness, wellness, and nutrition. So I make things equitable. That's what I say, and affordable and accessible. So we do contract work. We manage about 15 contracts a year, and we go into companies and create wellness programs.
Oh, I love that. So kind of still going back into corporate, but you are your own boss.
Bingo.
Have you been back to any of the companies that you used to work at to do the work?
You know, yeah, there's always something that goes back. Yeah, I'm getting ready to do something with a old boss coming up, and it's funny because we're talking boss to boss now, right? And so he's like, "You're not messing around, are you?" And I said, "I am not." I love that. It's empowering when you get in those spaces, isn't it? It is. I really enjoy doing the work we do, and I love empowering people and helping people get to the next level.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So real quickly, we're going to just talk about you for a second and not all the beautiful work that you do, but what is your morning routine to get your day going?
So I drink 8 ounces of water.
Nice.
I have it ready every morning. You know, that helps shock the system. And, you know, I open the blinds. I love sunlight. I live on water. And just take a moment to say deep breaths. Yeah. And say a little prayer. And I always thank God that I woke up, because sometimes you don't wake up.
Okay.
So, yeah.
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 And so real quickly, how did your life experiences shape your aspirations and career choices right now?
So 12 years ago, I went through a bad divorce and found myself through, you know, coming out of that through health and wellness. Right. And so just changing that structure in my life, changing sometimes that circle.
Right. Exactly,
and
literally.
Changing that circle.
Or
and
changing the shape of what you was in, right?
Yeah, and I also really, you know, honed in on what I saw my future to be, and wrote down those ideas and gathered them together, gathered my thoughts and sat with them. And I said I wanted to create a life that I'd be happy with, that I'd be proud of, and that my children could be.
Nice. And so it's like you manifested.
I definitely manifested my whole life to where I'm at today. Yeah.
I often hear that, write it out. And sometimes I see people like, put it on a sticky, put it on a mirror, you know, look at it, read it, chant it, all of that good stuff. And so here you are doing what you
I wrote it all down. I have 12 books that I get, you know, the ones that when you're checking out at TJ Maxx. Yeah. Those that are always, they're cute and everything. Yeah. I have 12 of those. And I've got them. I write everything down, whether it's a thought, whether I'm in a business meeting, but everything has come
full circle.
Full circle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Real quickly, how have challenges shaped your resilience and determination? So you talked about a bad divorce. I went through a divorce. I called it my long walk to freedom.
I like that.
What's ironic is I ended up going to Jamaica, and Buju Banton had just been free. Oh, okay. And his tour was called Long Walks to Freedom. So I got to go there right after my divorce with my homegirl, Kalimba, and just let go. But it didn't just, it wasn't a month. It was like a good couple years of it. Going through it.
Oh, yeah. I went through, it took me almost 3 years to get divorced. Yeah. So it was very trying. Yeah. I survived domestic abuse and came out of it healthier. And, you know, people were like, oh, I'm like, my life is great. Don't worry. But sometimes you got to go through it to get to it. I don't recommend that. But it also makes you take a look at yourself and the part you play. And I think as humans, we are quick to blame and judge others, and we don't realize how we showed up or how we weren't showing up and why we
And
got.
how to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Own your part in
Whether
it. Yeah.
you were, and the part sometimes you don't realize is the time you don't step away from something that was right there and you knew you should have.
Yeah.
So.
That's deep. It's interesting. You are my third guest in a month, besides myself, that has domestic violence. It is so common, so prevalent. And it's affecting men now as well, especially men in the gay community.
Yeah.
So to all those who are going through it, reach out to your community and try and get away, please and thank you. We're going to take a moment and come right back. Again, I am here with Shay Sandifer.
Yep.
Am I saying it properly?
Shay Sandifer.
Saying it properly.
Yes.
We'll be right back after this moment. Thank you for tuning in.
My name is Buddy McLean, and when I'm in the Twin Cities, I watch On Stage, brought to you by First World TV.
Welcome back. Like I said, I'm here with Shay Sandifer, new MPLS.
Correct.
Saying it properly. MPLS. Is your location in Minneapolis?
So we do contract work. So
Got it.
I don't
So-
have a brick and mortar on
Got it.
purpose. I don't want one. I don't need another mortgage.
Right.
That's what I say. We've grown. So the new MPLS stands for Nourish Energy and Wellness. So the Nourish part is I am the only Black woman in Minnesota that owns and operates a farmer's market. So we have that component to our business. Started it 8 years ago. Basically, I would say inherited
You
from
said own a farmer's market.
I'm gonna get into how I
I
own it.
can't wait to hear about this.
Yeah, and so I've been running it for 8 years, and then we've been in Robbinsdale for 3 years now.
Nice.
It's called the Lakeview Terrace Farmers Market. We open up May 18th, 9 to 1 every Saturday. It's a normal farmers market, but what we take is the components for the new MPLS and incorporate that into the market. So we have free fitness, 19 weeks of different fitness for the
In
community.
Robbinsdale.
Yes.
Nice.
Right at Lakeview Terrace Park.
Nice.
And then, you
Free
know.
fitness.
Yeah, free fitness. We have vendors. We have a thing called Meal Prep the Twist that teaches people how to cook on a healthy budget using farmers market food. We have cooking competitions. We partner with United Negro College Fund for their annual walk. And we just do a lot of community stuff. But yeah, so how do I own a farmers market? So I was on a neighborhood board. They were running it because it was a food desert over in North Minneapolis.
I remember that.
Yep.
Yep.
And it was small.
Food desert. Do y'all know what that means?
Food desert.
Yes. Literally, it's
Yes.
a thing. Yeah.
So I was on a board. They had been running it for probably about 7-8 years, but they had like 75 people coming. And so we got a grant through United Way. And so they brought me in to help boost it. We brought the numbers up to 450 a week per week. And from there, they didn't want to sustain it. So they signed over all the infrastructure to my business. So that meant, farmers markets, like if you had.
You
a
talk
grocery
like it's
store-
just so like, oh, and by the way, we went shopping and they signed it over to me.
Well, it wasn't that easy. We don't have time for that story. But
Anything is possible in
Yes,
this
anything
world.
is possible. I didn't realize, it's going to be my hardest part of my business, but one of the most rewarding
Yeah.
for people to have access to food. When you talk about the lack of diversity, the lack of equity, it's because if we don't eat well, how can we be well? If we don't have access to that, then we can't succeed as
Right.
people in general. And I realized that that was happening, and that was really important for us to bring it into the concept of the new MPLS.
I just love
Take
being
it all
around.
in.
I just love being around positive women of color,
Thank
black
you.
women in our community. I mean, just everything you just said. I'm just like,
And it's
y'all got
elaborate.
that, right? I mean, it's a whole nother conversation, but she owns her own farmer's market.
Yep. And so we have
In May.
75
It's starting
vendors.
in a month.
Yep, it starts in a month. Please come out. It's 75 vendors. We're still taking more vendors. So we average about 20, 30 a week, but 75 for the season. But we have so much going on. We have live music. We have DJs,
I can't wait to
everything.
support.
And this is not a black market.
Right.
I'm a black woman that owns a bar.
bar. It's for
A farmer's-
everybody.
Yeah, most of my vendors aren't black. So.
Right.
Right, but
I
I have
love
to say
farmers
that
market.
because people
Yeah.
always say that they're like, "Can I come?" And I'm like,
Everybody
and I
can
don't. I
come.
never got that at
Yeah.
first. I was like, oh, because some things that were created for not us,
Right.
that weren't inclusive. That's not how I feel as black people, if I can say that. That's how we think.
I feel like a lot of black people don't feel that way.
Yeah, I feel.
I mean,
we
there's
think-
males, there's frats, and there's sororities when it's for gender, and even
Yes.
still now that's changing. But we are just, come on in.
right. We
Yeah.
just want to have the
We
opportunity
don't want you to feel
own,
like how we felt. Yeah.
yeah, own and operate things
Right.
too.
Yeah.
Right. So.
And when we come to the table, we want to be able to eat.
Bingo.
It's important. As an event manager, it's like, I remember I was at a position for about a few years, and the lady would order food, and she wouldn't take in consideration. We had Muslim people, we had people that didn't eat pork,
Right.
we had people that were gluten-free, and I was like, how would you feel if you came to the table, and we had lunch, and you can eat any of the food? And she's like, I never thought about it like that. I'm like,
Right.
because you didn't have to. And I said, it's the worst feeling when you get to the table and you can't eat. And
You
it's like, why
can't
am I
eat.
here?
You
Why am
can't
I
have
here? Like, I'd rather,
access.
right. I'd rather just go drink water from the fountain and drive
Go
myself
home.
crazy working. Right.
Right.
So let me ask, how did the pandemic affect anything that you were doing?
So my business actually, I think, because we're health and wellness and equity, it like went to 1,000. So I went on March 17th from 9 contracts to 1.
Nice.
So I lost everything. By about 2 weeks later, it had came back. Like, can you do this? Can you do this? So during the pandemic, I was teaching 15 fitness classes a week.
Virtually.
Yes.
Wow.
Which was a lot.
Yeah.
I had a great, like, Pillsbury United Community, shout out to them. They kept my contract. They were the only people that kept my
Shout out
contract.
Pillsbury. They're big in our community.
Yes.
They do a lot of great
They do,
work.
and
Yeah.
they said keep going.
Yeah.
And then from there, we just grew between coaching and fitness and nutrition.
And that is in
then-
one of your books as well, one of the 12 books that you have.
Yeah, I wrote down, yeah. I mean, yeah, the business was already started,
Right.
right? We were already in business,
But just how to pivot.
how to pivot,
Right.
right? And
That's
being,
important.
I think sometimes we get so caught up in that we only can do something one way. And it's okay that sometimes we need to sit down too for a second.
Yeah, and it's okay to think about what's the emergency preparedness plan. I
Yeah.
always think about that, and people are like, "You're sounding negative." I'm like, "No,
No.
have a plan B, C, and D."
Right? Always.
Yeah, and we'll be right back after this moment to wrap it up and hear some more fun things.
What's good, everybody? It's your girl EB, and when I'm in the Twin Cities, I watch Hip Hop Nation on First World TV.
So I said I was going to ask this one when we came back because it's just I like to find out what's going on with people. As I said, she drove all the way down from Duluth. What is on your playlist right now? 3 songs.
Back that ass up. For life. That's what I was listening to some hip hop from like the early 2000s and the mid, and
That's
then
fine.
Tap Out.
Tap out, okay.
Tap Out. And then then it goes totally left, and then I had Sade.
Oh, nice. Smooth operator.
Yeah, so you never know. There's always going to be R&B, and there's always going to be hip hop.
Right.
I love it.
And you know what? That's what the show is all about. Anybody that's connected to hip hop in the community, which is a lot of people. A
Yes,
lot.
I love my hip hop.
And as you mentioned, I was going to ask, is there any specific community you focus on? And right now you said you're in Robbinsdale, and that's your community, but really your community opens up to everybody. Everybody is
Yeah.
welcome to come through, especially at the farmers market. And
Yeah,
with the
so
work
that's
you
one
do.
of the
Yeah.
places we're at, in the summertime, that's a seasonal, but I'm also the president of the Chamber of Robbinsdale, so
Nice.
I'm very active with there.
So nice to know that we are having seats at the table at different
Yeah.
organizations and nonprofits as well.
Yeah, it's definitely growing, but,
Congratulations to you. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
So with the other 2 businesses, Let Go, Let Flow, and Stories Behind the Menu, that kind of expands. I do lots of public speaking through Let Go, Let Flow and Wellness.
Nice.
We do a thing called Wellness Wednesday where we highlight the wins in Black and Brown community. And then the 4th Wednesday, I have courageous conversations between Black and white people of how we need to heal
Yeah.
with each other. And then Stories Behind the Menu is my dinner book club that is a beast. She is like, say, the
I
redheaded.
saw a little bit on the website about that. Yeah.
So the Stories Behind the Menu is now our biggest business.
Okay.
We take 4 chefs a year, always start with Black History Month, and we story tell how the only true cuisine in the United States is indigenous.
Yeah.
Everything else was brought in through enslavement or immigration, so why are we racist?
Mm-hmm.
So we take the chefs, we pick out a book or documentary that connects to that culture, and then they story tell through 5 courses.
Wow.
And we started off with $500. And I trademarked it immediately because I said this is going to be big.
Right.
And we hit over 500,000 revenue last year.
Congratulations.
And we're taking it global.
Nice.
And so really excited. And our thing is to connect with different communities, let chefs tell their story that are BIPOC. And I know that word's played out.
Yeah.
But we need to be able to tell our story because
Right.
our food has changed America.
And what better way to do it than over food and drink, non-alcoholic or alcoholic, but
Yeah.
literally like sharing over food. And it's
Yeah.
really, it's interesting when you have time to share and break bread. Like,
Yes, you
yeah,
break
a lot
bread.
of things happens.
It breaks down biases. It takes down the ignorance because
Right.
we all can have some about we need to unlearn and that we need to love. And we
Yeah.
always say we lead with empathy and love,
Yeah.
right? And we lead with the celebratory heart. And so with that, we've created a foundation called the CNC that will be launching. And our goal is to, with our programs, to give back
Right.
through through
Yeah.
our foundation.
I'm a transplant born in Canada, raised in Trinidad, so I'm a transplant into the U.S. And when I was working corporate, I was so bored with my job. I mean, it was accounting, moving money, auditing.
Yes.
I got so bored, but one of the first things I did was join our ERGs, our diversity,
yeah.
equity, inclusion of events, and
Yeah.
and it was just it gave me a whole different side, because living in Canada and living in Trinny, it's just. You don't experience what the U.S. is very unique. All the things that happens here, and so a lot of times we were sharing over food. Sharing over food, and it literally seemed to like break down the barriers in the room at the time.
And you don't sit by who you come
Right.
with
Yeah.
at ours.
Ever.
So you can't ever sit by
Yeah.
who you come with, and we have conversation pieces so that you can be real and talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got a minute and a half left. I got 2 questions for you. What's
Okay.
next?
What's next? Farmers Market opens up.
May 18th, you said?
Yep, May 18th. My son graduates high school.
Yay.
We've got stories behind the menu coming up May 16th. We've got Spice and Rice, which is Jamaican and Laos food. Y'all need to come.
Who's your Jamaican chef? Are we allowed
Chef
to say?
Rowan.
Okay.
His
Yep.
restaurant's called Spice and Rice.
Yep. And their family owns Palm Grove.
Yep.
Nice.
And I get married in July.
Oh, going to the church. People are still getting married.
If you
Look at that. Look at that. I was looking at it. It's
Second time,
gorgeous.
second time, so, yeah.
Congratulations. And this time's going to be the last time, hopefully,
Yeah, well,
right?
we've had 11 years, so
Nice.
we've healed.
God is good. Amen. Amen. Any big ups, what we say in my community, any shout outs you want to give to anybody or everybody? Or
Yes, definitely to the people that have pushed me along the way, and our sponsors, Blue Cross Blue Shield, North Memorial, that they believe in what I'm doing. Caribou Coffee,
Nice.
Surly Beer, and the Wine Company. They are literally pushing us to the next level of wellness.
Nice.
So thank
Nice.
you.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for
we
having
appreciate.
me.
How can people find you, by the way?
thenewmpls.com. You don't have to say
NPS.
www.
And
right?
you're on Instagram and you're also
Yep,
on Facebook.
everything and storiesbehindthemenu.co.
And
We're
is it
everywhere.
NEW and then M period P? Is
No,
it all?
thenewmpls.com.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Again, Chaz,
Shay.
Shay Sandifer, sorry,
Yeah.
and thank you for coming in, and we look forward to your work, and I can't wait to come through. Hopefully I'll see some of y'all at the Black-owned Farmers Market,
Yes.
May 18th in Robbinsdale,
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
What's happening, y'all? My name is Frank Centwali, and when I'm home in the Twin Cities, I watch On Stage Live, brought to you by First World TV.
Welcome back. What happens behind the scenes is outstanding. I am here with a very, very, very good friend, very good important person in the community, outstanding former member of the Rondo community, St. Paul, but now here lives in this part of the north side, and the one and only mayor, April Graves. The mayor. The mayor, y'all. I got the mayor on my show, literally. Man, congratulations. I say it to you I'm so honored to know you. Like, when I see you, even when I see your messages come through on WhatsApp and everything, just, it's humbling. Makes me think if I had a daughter, I could just say, look at that. Anybody look up to you. I talk to my kids about you. It's just, we can do anything. And so congratulations.
Thank you.
Every day I see you, I want to say that. I know it probably sounds tacky, but
No, I appreciate it.
I remember when you were running and I'm like, I can't vote in your neighborhood, but whatever you need me to do. And here you are and you made it.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been a journey, but I'm grateful to be where I am and to have the space, the voice at the table that's needed.
Right.
So thank you for having me on the show.
Yes. And so you were the mayor of what city?
Brooklyn Center.
Right.
Yeah.
So real quickly, tell everybody a little bit about, you grew up in St. Paul? Are you from St. Paul, born and raised?
Born and
right?
raised in St. Paul, in the Rondo neighborhood.
Rondo for life.
Right, graduated from St. Paul Central.
All right.
And went to Metro State University. I really loved the St. Paul neighborhood, but when it was time for me to find my first home, I
Right.
couldn't afford really
Right.
to buy
That
in St.
part.
Paul.
Yep.
And so it was right after the foreclosure crisis,
Mm-hmm.
I started looking into home ownership options. I just wanted to have a space for me and my kids to have roots.
Right.
I knew how important it was to have a home, a consistent home for all of my childhood years.
Yes.
And also because renting for 4 kids is more expensive than a mortgage.
Period. Still
So-
is. It
right,
still is. I tell people all the
exactly.
time, like, I gotta find a place to rent. They're like,
Right.
I'm like, you should buy. I mean,
Right.
thank God I bought when I bought. But
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My mortgage still is less than most people's
Right.
rent, you know?
Yeah.
So I ended up buying a foreclosure in Brooklyn Center. Wasn't familiar with Brooklyn Center at all, but the house was a foreclosure, was within my price range. It had immediate equity, you know,
Nice.
because it was a foreclosure.
Right.
Had wood-burning fireplaces, a big
Nice.
backyard with an apple tree and a pear tree, and space for me and all my kids. So
Nice.
The rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
But you still go back to Rondo. Like, you're Rondo for life. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
still-
you can't, that's just in
yeah.
your blood,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
Definitely, you know,
Yeah.
still connected with a lot of folks over in St. Paul and Rondo. Like to go back for events that I grew up going to, like
Yeah.
Rondo Days,
Yeah.
and
Jazz
still
festival,
still
yeah.
connected, you know, with the
Yeah.
mayor of St. Paul, Mayor
Melvin
Carter. He
yep.
went to high school with me. We were both
Yep.
in journalism together,
Yep.
and several of the council members there
Nice.
I also know
Yeah.
from being younger.
Because you're American, so you
Right.
move in those spaces now. But let me tell you, she's still a regular, humble individual, because you will see her hanging out and chilling with the rest of us on a Friday or Saturday night, just being her.
Absolutely,
Just
and
being real.
when I'm in that space, I'm like, yeah, just
Let me be in that
Let
space.
me be April.
Period. I wish I could say that. I have to do that. I have to go out of town to be in that space.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm in that space, people are just like, when are you going to promote the next party or whatever? You know how it is.
Absolutely.
You know
Oh, it
how it
happens.
is. Yeah. Hey, can you fix this policy for me?
right, exactly.
So let me ask you a question. You're on this journey now to being mayor, and I know you were also a public servant before that, right? What was one of your biggest failures, and then how did you learn? Because we're real, we're human beings, right? But one of your biggest failures ever, like just say in life, not necessarily in this position, but
It's interesting that you asked that question because that was the question that I found most sort of intriguing and unsure how I would really answer it. Because I really feel like I don't look at failures as failures, I look at them as lessons, you know?
Yep.
And I thought about several different things, you know, whether you're thinking about a relationship that you've really invested a lot of time into,
Right.
And really wanted to have work out a specific way, or whether you're thinking about like a policy
Yep.
or something related to justice that you
Yeah.
worked really hard for. You thought you built all the buy-in, all the consensus that you needed, and then it fails. In both of those situations, I think what I've learned is to have non-attachment, and I think non-attachment in life is so important because it allows you to create space to keep moving forward and find other ways to actually achieve what it was you were trying to achieve. So whether that's a loving relationship or that's equity or justice, you know, I have a very strong spiritual faith and practice.
Yes.
And so I just have gotten to a space now in my life that I definitely wasn't at before. And being in public office and also just my personal relationships
Yeah.
has helped me get to this space where, you know, I trust that the Creator knows what she's doing, you know,
Period.
what they're doing.
period. There's a
and-
rhyme to the reason, right?
Right, and divine
Yeah.
timing is a real thing. You know, my
Ooh.
timing may not be the Creator's timing. So, you know, I can put forth the effort, but it's for the Creator to design and figure out exactly how that looks, how that shows up in my life, and when. So that's kind of been, I think, the biggest lesson, you know, that I've learned through failures, through frustrations.
The show is heavy today. In a sense that it's empowering because, as with the guest before, just dropping the jewels, the lessons, right? Man. Before we go to break, I want to ask you, what's on your playlist right now?
You know, I heard you ask that question before too, and I was like, man, I was actually out dancing last night.
Nice.
I was, but I, you know, kept it under control because I knew I had to come here in the morning. But I came across a song I really liked. My friends know that I always like to pretend sort of like, I like songs that sound like I'm riding a horse because
Yeah.
horses are my favorite. And there was this song called Bumpy Ride that I'm really jamming to. I listened to it on my way over here. So, and I'll probably listen to it again when I leave.
Bumpy ride.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be right back. We're in a smooth ride right now, but I'm going to be looking that up. We'll be right back after this moment.
My name is Dr. Zakia Robbins McNeil, and when I'm in the Twin Cities, I watch On Stage Live on Hip Hop Nation's Twin Cities, brought to you by First World TV.
Okay, we're back with Miss April Graves. I'm sorry, the mayor. The mayor. The mayor. When you say mayor in my country, it means something else, but it's still a position of power. So yeah. So I want to ask you, what do you do as your morning ritual? When you wake up in the morning? What do you do?
Well, it depends on how early I went to bed. You know, I really would like to have a more consistent routine in the morning. I'm trying to.
Right.
But I do have to make sure that my 2 teenagers get to school on time.
So there's no time for you at times.
At times,
Yeah.
you know, so if I manage to get to bed early enough that I have some time before I have to, you know, get the girls to school, because I drive them to school until Ayana gets her license anyway, then I wake up and just actually lay in bed
Right.
For about 10 minutes, pray, meditate,
Amen.
lift up gratitude for a
Right.
new day, and that I'm healthy and that I'm strong. If there's more time before I have to leave with the girls, then I might actually do some yoga, do some, you know, just start with being on my back, pulling my knees into my chest, breathing.
Stretching, yeah.
Stretching.
Yes, I
Yeah.
started doing a lot of that too. When I came back from Trinny in the middle of January, I was just so wound up, and my son was like, "Mom, you probably need to start doing more stretching in the morning." So as long as the white devil pit bull let me do it,
Or smudge, you know, burn some sage.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
maybe turn on some
I
some
try to
music.
get it before having to put them out. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's important. I ask that because it's like so often. I just remember before my sons were out of high school and all that. It was just like you said. It was grind, and I didn't really take time for myself. And so now I'm enjoying those moments, but I'm trying to get into a process. So that's why I've been asking people. I like to tap in and know. Who is somebody in your life that has been very influential in just changing the narrative for you?
You know, I really feel like my kids have been that for
Yeah,
me.
amen.
You know, I
Right.
had my first son when I was 15, and so
I never knew that.
Yeah, he's 27
Nice.
now,
Amen.
and you know, we kind of grew up together. And then I had my second son, Israel, when I was 20, and then my daughter, Ayana, when I was 26, and Jasmine when I was 28.
Wow, look at you.
So I had all my kids before I had even been 30, and I did a lot of growing up with them.
Right.
And I think I'm a very self-aware and like reflective person.
Right.
And so, you know, with Timothy, I was still in high school. I was finishing high school. I brought him with me every day to daycare at the school. I was really healthy. He was a huge baby, by the way, almost 10 pounds with my little
Lord.
15-year-old. But, you know, but I just ate really healthy. You know, I wasn't drinking or smoking or anything like that. But then, you know, with my other kids, you know, I was graduated, was figuring out who I was as an adult. I did go to the University of Minnesota for a year and then ended up dropping out, getting my bartender's license. That's around the time I met you, bartending at the Blue Nile, and later at the Red Sea.
I miss the Blue Nile and the Red Sea.
Right,
Man,
right.
I'm so glad that AK still puts stuff on at the Red Sea. 'Cause
That's
that
right.
place wouldn't be there probably, yeah.
So, you know, that was a different period in my life.
Right.
You know, I think of sort of like that time period, especially around like 24, 25, 26, as being some of my more difficult years.
Man.
But I also went back to college. You know, I actually graduated a week before I turned 30, and I got an Outstanding Student Award. I gave the
Nice.
keynote speech at graduation. And in that time period, I had both my daughters, was working as a security guard, as a bartender. But slow and steady wins the race. You know, I didn't always really know exactly what I was going to do.
Right.
But
But
I knew
somebody
what
up
I
there
was
knew.
interested in.
Right.
And I just was like, pursue your passions. You know, my dad always says there's nothing to it but to do it.
Right.
You know, and so a lot of the time it's like, hey, don't be afraid of tripping and falling or failing, but you could fail up as long as, you know, you're looking at that as a lesson and a way to grow and uplift yourself, make yourself stronger and wiser.
You're making me wiser because I'm just learning so much about you that I haven't had the honor to know. And wow, you're so accomplished. And
Thank you.
Yes, and
It's been rough.
yeah, I mean, I think being a single parent too is just, you know, it's a job. Nobody, if you haven't done it, don't judge ever because it's a lot. It's a lot. And,
It is.
And raising black sons in the Twin Cities in general for me has been very different because coming from Trinidad in Canada where there's just so diverse and race is not usually a thing, it's different here. And I think it poses a lot of stress, especially on mothers. I had this conversation a couple years ago with a gentleman that, you know, like every time you guys walk out that door, we're stressed.
Absolutely.
My sons, we share a location, and it's not because I don't trust my sons. It's people that they come into contact with that I don't know. And it's a lot to be a mother of black boys and girls and navigate life in America. It is. So
Right,
and
especially-
continue to
yeah.
go. Yeah, continue to keep on going with everything that life throws at us. With no
Absolutely.
manual, right?
Right, no
Yeah.
manual. You know, I feel like, you know, it's been sometimes a frustration to not have had a little bit more of a male figure, or at least their father. One of my son's father's figure was not as present as
Right.
I would have liked. I mean, he's still a good guy. He's still around. But at least, you know, he's had my father my brother.
Having those role models around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in me, I think, he sees me as his rock.
Right.
I know he does. And I've been able to teach him lessons that I think are really important to him, being able to feel like he's a man and able to stand on his own feet too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Man, it's Dub J. When I'm in the Twin Cities, I watch Hip Hop Nation on First World TV. Peace.
Welcome back. We're here. And so I like to ask my guests what they want to talk about. So that's what we did. We went to break. So we're going to, outside of being mayor, April has a whole nother job that she does.
Yeah.
So 2 full-time jobs, because that's what superwomen do. So tell us about what else you do.
I'm actually a public health specialist in the city of Minneapolis Neighborhood Safety Department, where primarily I'm focusing on implementing a 5-year CDC grant called Preventing Violence Affecting Young Lives. And as part of that, I lead 2 sort of strategies. One is called Minneapolis Violence Prevention Community Champions, where I host a quarterly institute that trains those that want to be advocates for violence prevention in their homes, in their workplaces, in their neighborhoods, and the public health approach to violence prevention, which is really about seeing violence as you would a communicable disease. It's something that can be prevented. It's something that can be spread, and it's also something that you can heal from.
Right.
And then I also talk to them about neurobiology, your fight, flight, or freeze response, epigenetics, which is really around understanding historical and intergenerational trauma,
Right.
Adverse childhood experiences, which can affect your health outcomes into adulthood,
Period.
and resiliency.
Right.
And then at the end of that institute, they also learn conflict de-escalation and resolution skills.
So
I
they're
do-
not out here showing out and learning how to navigate when
Right.
they get angry or in
Exactly.
situations.
Right.
Backs
So
up against the wall.
I do that 4 times a year as a quarterly institute, and then in the other months, I partner with other violence prevention related organizations that lead topics such as racial equity, community organizing and movement building, healing from community trauma.
And this is all young people?
It's adults and young people.
Okay. Yep.
So that's one strategy.
People of color or people, everybody?
A lot of the people that come are people of color, but I find that I do need to reach out to some of those corners where you're not going to find as many people
Right.
of color, because as we're trying to build understanding around the need for alternative types of response
Right.
and the need to get at the root causes of violence, we need to make sure that we're building understanding and allyship with folks that might not
Period.
fully understand
Right.
it. And when you live in black and brown communities, you know it because you live it every
Right.
single day.
But you don't know what the others
Some
are
other
going through.
places, you
Yeah.
know, they're more sheltered, they might be more privileged, and they don't get it. So I'm trying to build some buy-in from those communities as well as support the communities that get it through their lived experience.
Do you see it making an impact? Because I just see violence is just constantly increasing around us globally. Do you see the work with the institutes that you're doing quarterly? Do you see it doing a change?
I think so. If nothing else, I think it empowers the individuals to recognize the change that they can be themselves.
Okay.
You know, if you don't have the ability to be self-aware, to self-regulate, to have self-control, to make better choices for yourself, then you're not going to show up for the people in your life and the people that you care about in a way that's really effective. And so I think through these institutes, we're building relationships across different organizations, across different sectors of the community.
Right.
But you're also building sort of like this inner skill set
Right.
to, first of all, recognize in yourself when
Period.
you're being triggered,
Right.
and secondly, be able to show up and have grace for yourself and empathy for yourself and
Because it starts
others.
with you.
Exactly.
It always starts with you.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it's a vulnerable space.
Right.
Sometimes, you know, emotions can get heightened in it, but even in that space, we also create time for folks to take care of themselves.
Right.
Like, you know, get up, walk out, stretch. You know, what do we need to do to really make sure that that what we're learning, we take ownership of it, we make it our own, and we find ways to continue to spread that message. Because
Right.
I'm always about the ripple effect, right?
Period. Not just in the moment, but how do we keep
Right.
on going with it long term?
Absolutely.
Short term,
And
yeah.
if you're throwing out a pebble into a still
Right.
pond, right? Do you want that ripple to be positive or negative?
Right.
And everybody has the power and the potential to be a positive ripple or a negative ripple.
Yeah.
You know? So that's really the work that I'm doing in my full-time job. There's another strategy that's with Minneapolis Public Schools that is student-led.
Yeah.
It's called Building Peaceful Schools. It's at South,
Nice.
Roosevelt, and Edison right now.
So those are all high schools?
Yeah.
Okay.
All high schools.
Yeah.
So, and I also teach yoga
Yeah.
on Sundays.
Right. Did you have it last Sunday? 'Cause
I did.
I didn't see the notification, so
I
I'm
did.
promising you I have to come over.
Or tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow at 11. You know, and that's part of my own personal practice, but
Yeah.
it's also part of like sharing a space for folks to release,
All ages.
to
There's
rest,
there's
to
no
rejuvenate. It's donation based. There's
Yep.
no charge because there's so much that we carry. It's important to make time to not be anything but just present for yourself. You know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's, a lot about the work that I do on a regular.
Congratulations on it. And thank you. Thank you for doing all of that because as we know, I'm dealing, with the effects of what violence does to communities, and it's global effect.
Absolutely.
When somebody takes somebody's life, 2 lives, it's global because there's people that live all over the world that are affected by it, and I also think there needs to be more work when it comes to mental health. There's a lot of mental health issues that are happening. I think the pandemic escalated. I think people had issues before. It just escalated, either being alone, cooped up, or not having the access to services.
Well, that's why we have that conversation around neurobiology, so people can understand when they're in fight or freeze, and when they're actually able to think rationally,
right?
Or even tap into their intuition. You're going to be in paranoia if you're only in fight, flight, or freeze.
Right.
But if you're able to, calm yourself, notice the signals in your body that let you know
the
when
body,
you're
everything,
dysregulated.
anxiety, all of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any big ups and shout outs you want to give? We got 10 seconds.
Big up to my mom for always holding it down at home, making good food, to my friend group, and of course to Trinny Cee.
Rap, rap, rap. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, how are you that?
2, 3.